everyone. Today we get to play Bot Factory. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because board games are amazing.
Unless you're a bot. We don't want bots hitting our channel.
Okay. So this game is a Lacerda game,
yes.
right? But it's at a little bit of a different play level. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. Randy, tell us a little bit more, though, beyond that.
Bot Factory is a 2023 release. It has a Board Game Geek rating of 7.7 and a Board Game Geek rank of 4418. 1 to 4 player game, 30 to 60 minutes average length. So right there, it's already different from most Lacerda games. Age 14 and up. Probably because most Lacerda games are on the complex side.
I thought this was going to be an all-nighter, guys.
Design is by Vital Lacerda and Joao Quintela Martins. Art by Pedro Soto. Published by Eagle-Gryphon Games. Now, this was a Kickstarter version, but it doesn't look like there's much difference between this and the standard version.
Just the auditor's different.
Yeah, the auditor, there's an alternate color that you can play. The Kickstarter, when I backed it, was $48. The MSRP on this version is $64. And it's currently up on Eagle-Gryphon's site for the $64. That's the only place I found it, except for Board Game Geek, where some people who probably were backers of the Kickstarter and just didn't really enjoy the game are selling it for $47 to $49, which is basically the same price that the Kickstarter's got. So if you're interested, there's a couple copies out on Board Game Geek that are in the price range of the Kickstarter.
All right, so let's talk about the quality of components. You do have screen-printed meeples of different varieties.
And robots.
Well, yeah, so you got a person, you got a couple of robots. I feel so bad for Sandra because this is my job at my factory.
Well, what's interesting is they screen printed both sides on the workers, but the robots are only screen printed on one side.
Well, same thing with the auditor.
Yeah.
She's only screen printed on one side, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So
and you get little blurbs. They're not screen printed, but you could write your choice of curse words on there, little symbols or whatever. Because, yeah, I mean, it is work.
And then there is a linen finish on the 4 different part of the game board. There's 4 different boards.
And there's like a little spinny wheel that is really tight. It's not great, but it functions. I mean, it turns.
But your things spin out of control.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they were inlaid, but they're not.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with a 7 because I don't know what else to pick. To be quite honest with you,
I'm probably going to go a little higher up because
because the storage
is really nice. You get your individual pieces that come out. All the stuff has got perfectly fitted, and also I like the little markers being see-through. I mean, it's a small touch, but it's a nice. It has a nice aesthetic appearance.
I mean, okay, fair enough.
I'll probably go ahead and give it an 8.
Okay, I understand it. I forgot about the storage. All right, so now let's talk about the theme. So the theme is it's a factory, and you're making robots.
Yeah, if you've played Kanban EV, this is basically a simplified version of Kanban EV, but
except you're making robots.
Instead of making cars, you're making robots. And matter of fact, in the rulebook, it references Kanban EV, and the auditor is Sandra that they borrowed from the factory from Kanban EV.
She's the same auditor.
Yes.
I feel her pain. I really do.
Yes. So she has to audit different types of factories, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, the next factory game, she better be in the next one too. I feel Sandra. All right. So, I mean, overall, I mean, I think it's cute. I think they did it a little bit more. I think they get it a little bit towards a younger age, maybe keeping it a little simplified.
Well,
and the art,
but
the art is still more cutesy than.
Yeah, it is. And you got the little factory workers, and the robots are cute. Honestly, this is kind of a surprising title because this is the first time Lacerda games have taken a step downward. I mean, usually they're fairly hard, difficult to learn. They're very advanced games, very few options. This has still got the few options, but it's almost like an entry level to introduce you to Lacerda games.
I mean, I was not expecting this quick playthrough.
Yeah.
But we need to focus on theme. So overall, the theme, I think it's very cute. I think it's a little more family friendly. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they did fine. I think the mechanisms really kind of work. So I'm probably going to give it a 7 on theme.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably give it a 7.5 just because I think the robots are pretty nice. The color choices are nice. We both got blue and purple, which was nice.
I do like.
Yes.
Never mind. I'm a 7.5 too.
But yeah, I think it's aesthetically pleasing, and it's actually, I think, easier to tell things on the boards than Kanban. Kanban is a very complex, convoluted board system. This one is much easier to tell what's going on.
Well, I mean, I think that was the point. It simplified a lot of things. All right, so moving on to the rule book.
So this was the most refreshing part of the game because you didn't have a 20, 30-page rule book. It was only 12 pages, 2 of which were the solo game. So it was an easy read. Now, the font is a little small, but it does have nice pictures for everything. During the setup, it took me a little bit to understand exactly how it was working because there's a little bit of vagueness in it. It's not bad. It took me a second to line everything up and figure out what they were referencing in a few places. But once I got into the gameplay, it was smooth. Each section of the board is its own page. It tells you exactly how each of the actions works on that page. And what you do, what the auditor does when they're on that board, very clear. The scoring, the maintenance, everything is very simple to understand. And then there's the alterations for a 2-player game. So they put into the actual sections when they talked about them, but then they did a summary at the end for 2 players to tell you exactly what those changes were again to have them together. I thought that was very nicely done. Yeah, and then I didn't get into the solo play. There's a couple variants that I don't exactly understand why they created a wooden piece for, because the variants don't have anything to do with that piece. I guess it's just to let you know that the variants are in play. But everything is very easy to understand. I think they did an excellent job with the rulebook. It's just the font is a little small. I'm going to go ahead and probably give it an 8.5 because I think it's the fact that it's a Lacerda game and you can learn it as quickly as you could on this one. It was actually
you'll call that a win.
It's definitely a win.
All right, so now let's move on to the actual gameplay. Okay, so we're kind of going to be teaching just the 2-player variant a little bit, just because of.
Well, the only difference really is you cannot assign yourself to the same board that Sandra, the auditor, is on.
Yeah. So in the starting place, she's actually going to be right here. I am. We were somewhere.
Well, you're off the board at the very beginning.
Yeah, at the very beginning, you're off the board.
You will have one robot project blueprint, and you will have one tile of your choice stack of the colors, in which most likely you'll pick the one that matches the contract.
Yeah, so I'm going to take my turn. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to this space right here. And we'll talk about that when it's my turn. So then Randy's going to place his worker.
Yeah, so at the beginning, let's say I would have a piece, so these would be gone. Get rid of these, but I've got a project for a green, and I would started with a green here. So let's clear all this off. And so I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to assign myself over here to place my piece. All right.
So Randy goes first because he's the leftmost player on the board. So he's going to take his turn.
I'm going to place this here. Normally I only have one of these blurbs in play, so I will get to place my piece based upon the spot I'm on. The first spot is only one action. The farthest to the right is 1 to 3 actions, but I have to pay one of these blurbs to take that. So I'm going to go ahead and go here, and I'm going to place mine. And when I place it as a bonus for being the first piece in that color on the board, I get to take 2 of these little blurb bubbles. And these are used for payment in many cases. and I get to play them into play. So basically, these are speech bubbles that you're using to talk your way into motivating your workers or to talk your way into letting the auditor let you take an action.
All right, so I'm going to take one because I get that for this particular space.
And one gives you a speech
blurb. And then I get 1 to 3 actions. Okay, so I actually don't need anything here. I'm going to go, whoo! I'm going to
destroy the board.
That's the one thing that bugged me. So 1 to turn, 2 to pick up. I do have a third one if I want. And if I was at the beginning of the game, I'd probably pick up this piece just because it seems right. Okay, all right, so that's my 3 actions. Now, then Sandra, she's going to take her turn.
Which on the first turn, she doesn't do anything.
Right.
She's basically gathering her notes.
But moving forward, she will be doing something on each location.
So then there's a maintenance phase where basically you wipe out the bottom row of the blueprints and then move those down. And then...
now, Randy gets to choose whose location.
Right.
Where are you going to go?
So since I'm furthest to the left, I choose first. I cannot go again in a 2-player game to the same board that Sandra's on, so I can't go down there. I'm going to go, I need parts now, so I'm going to go over where you're at, but I'm going to go, I can't go to the space that you're on, so I have to go to the next spot over.
Okay. So then
actually, there's no reason not to. I'll go over here to the 1 to 6 actions.
Yeah. All right, so then I've got to figure out what I'm going to do over here. Well, I guess I will pick up a contract. Normally, you wouldn't have these 4, but we do now, because that's my turn. All right, so I'm going to end up picking up this. I am going to end up picking up a yellow. Now, there's something to note is that there are these wild...
you got to do it in turn order, so you wouldn't go
Oh, right, I can't go yet. And then lady over here, Sandra is going to go up here.
To the very far left and on the next board that she would move to, which is, since she was on the far right when she wraps and comes over to this side of the board. Mm-hmm. So her action is first, and in this board, her action is she's going to wipe out the leftover spare parts here, and we're going to backfill them. There's a little marker that tells you what color we were previously set on. So the blue one is going to go here. It's going to move down. And we're going to put the green one on there. So now these are parts that if you're, as a free action, when you're on this board, you can take one of your parts and swap for one that's over there. You do have to pay one of these orbs to do it, though.
All right, now it's Randy's turn.
So I'm going to get 6 actions here. These are empty, so I can't do anything there. So 1 to turn it.
And then you autofill the empty space once it hits in this yellow area.
So it's going to be the green is going to go there, and then that's going to move here. And then I'll go 2 to turn that.
Right. So these things get filled again.
Mm-hmm.
And then now this is on the blue.
Yep. And I've already put the legs on that green, so I need a torso. So there's 3. And I don't need legs for green, so we'll turn again. And I'll take the blue, and we'll go ahead and turn one more time. That was 5. And they have a little marker here, so you can keep track of up to 6 here to keep track of how many actions you've taken. And I think it's the 6, so we'll take 1 more.
Okay.
Now, there are spaces on here, 2 spaces. If you took the tile from that space that lets you pay a blurb to actually play onto this board one of those tiles. I didn't take one of those. But as a free action, again, I could pay one of these blurbs to trade in 3 of these tiles to take the next one off the top.
Okay, all right, so then I am over here. I'm going to end up taking this yellow. But the thing is I took too many contracts, or I didn't like these contracts. So I'm going to turn those in, and I actually get a wild part, if you will. So I will get a wild head.
You also get a blurb because you took the one on the bottom right.
Oh, I did. Look at that. That's awesome sauce. All right. So then the round ends and we're going to do a cleanup phase. So the bottom 2 get pulled. This gets done. These would get shuffled and turned over. We're just turning them over. And I'm throwing stuff. Okay. And then
she's going to move first, and she's going to move here.
Now you got to move.
Then me. So I've got 3 of these blurbs. I'm going to go ahead and go down to the finance board down there.
Which one?
Well, I've only got 3, so put me at the middle one. That's 1 to 3. It gives me 3 actions.
All right, I'm gonna go to the 1 to 4 because I can.
Now, the finance board, what it does is it lets you increase the value of a specific type of robot. So if you're collecting green, you might want to increase the value of green. Or you can also commit to contracts that you're going to try to complete orders for customers. And if you do, you're the first to do it. There's a more valuable version of it. And then if you're second, there's a less valuable. Only 2 people can be at the same spot. And only you can be on it once. So for a 2-player game, both of us could be there. But that you cost 1, 2, or 3, and the value of the contract goes up because each row has its own value too. So the contract has a value and the row has a value. So I've got 3. I'm building a green. So I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 to commit to the bottom row. And since that's only 1, I put it on the first one there. So if I complete 2 green robots, it's going to be worth 7 victory points at the end of the game. So normally,
+2.
Yeah, +2 for the row. Now, normally those top ones wouldn't be there. That we just finished the game, so those are just sitting there. And then also, I've got two of these left over because I only spent 1, so I got 3 actions. So I'm going to pay 2, and I'm going to raise the value of green by 2. So it goes up 2.
He passed
and I passed a line, and that line lets me take 1 into my tiles and play it to the board. So over here, I can play this tile, and I get 2 back.
But he gets the opportunity to spend 1
to take 1 off the top, and I'm going to do that because I get 2 of these back, and I'm going to pay 1 of them so I can take the top tile off of the green, and just so happens it's the head, which is what I needed. So I'm going to take that tile.
Okay, so I'm going to end up doing the same thing. I'm just going to spend the 3 here.
So you cross the line, which will let you take another project.
Yeah, I will take another yellow because that sounds like fun. And then I get to place 1 on the board. So I will place the middle one.
And you get 2 blurbs for playing a second tile there.
So I spent these 3. But I get 2 back. And
then you could spend 1 to take the yellow top tile.
But I'm going to choose not to do that.
Okay.
All right. So that's pretty much all the actions. You're going to play till a couple of things happen. You will play once someone completes 5 robots. Or 1 color of robots is completely gone.
Yeah.
And then that triggers the end of the game. And then you're going to calculate the victory points. So the first thing you do is take how many of your robots times the value that's on this chart. And then you're going to look at your contracts. And so, for example, I had 2 reds here, so I'm going to get the 7 because that's the place I triggered, plus the 7 here on top of what these were valued for. Okay. So, contracts are very, very useful.
But if you commit to a contract and you can't fill it by the end of the game, then you lose the victory points of that contract. Not the row bonus, but you lose the points that the contract that you committed to.
Yeah, because you broke a contract. Not okay.
You also lose points at the end of the game for any leftover of these part tiles. These are worth -1 victory point, and any project tiles are worth -2 victory points if you have them. So you don't want to have those. But you do get bonus points for every 2 blurbs that you still have at the end of the game.
Yeah. So overall, I thought this was an easier factory game. Yeah. I mean, is it what I would typically think a Lacerda game would be? No. But is it fine? Yes. And I think when people hear Lacerda and they get this kind of game, I think there may have been a little shock.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting to be here all night. I was not expecting it to be fairly short, but I also think that this is a lot more accessible to a lot more people because the complexity is in the medium range.
Well, I think this is one that might be perfect for Rhonda, my sister, because she's not a fan of Lacerda games. She doesn't like them. I think it's because the barrier to entry of them being as heavy as they are. This one is much lighter, and I think it might be something she would be interested in giving a try, because it might change her opinion of the Lacerda games, or at least introduce her to something that parts of it that, this is definitely Kanban light. So if you are already a fan of Lacerda and you're just a heavier gamer, you're probably not going to take an interest in this one.
Yeah.
It's more of a light to medium game for Lacerda, which is hard to even fathom.
Yeah, well, and I'll be honest though, I was having a little problem with and this may be a 2-player issue, not a 3-player issue. You know, not when you have it when you could go.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very, very limited
mm-hmm.
with the auditor. Like it felt almost clunky because not being able to go to the spaces. I mean, I'm fine paying a penalty. Don't get me wrong,
mm-hmm.
but it just felt like you get stalled.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't like getting stalled in this kind of game.
Yeah, I didn't like the 2-player aspects of that. And the other thing about is there was the maintenance on this particular board.
I felt that
because every round it says in the maintenance phase you wipe the bottom 2 tiles off the row and decrease them. But when Sandra goes there, her action she takes there is to wipe the bottom 2 tiles. So all it does is wipe more blue of those.
And you just kept shuffling them over and over again.
It didn't add anything.
The maintenance, what I felt like is the maintenance should pull everything down, refill.
Yeah.
And then she comes and she wipes the 2.
Yeah.
Is what I thought probably should have happened with that one. And like you said, the 2-player thing, I think was a little wonky.
Mm-hmm.
This is not one of my favorite medium games. I mean, I think it teaches some mechanics that you see in some
mm-hmm.
of the Lacerda games, so maybe it has interest to the people that are trying to slowly integrate into some of the heavier,
mm-hmm.
complex Lacerda games. But if I'm thinking about other games of this way, I don't necessarily know if I would pick this one out. All right, so giving it a score, I don't know where I'm at, to be honest. What are you thinking?
I'm probably at a 7 on this one. I don't think it's bad. I think it's good, and I think it has its place if you're looking to try to ease yourself into a Lacerda style game. Given the fact that we're already at the Lacerda level, it's always a beast to try to get them to the table and learn them the first time, but we enjoy them when we get them there. Yeah, I don't know that I needed this bridge to get there. I didn't know it was going to be that. You know, I was expecting it to be its own thing. And
I think there was a little bit of shock to other people that got this game. And
so I can definitely understand why someone who's a big Lacerda fan would be disappointed in this game. But looking at the population of people, I mean, the Lacerda games only appeal to a small subset of the gaming population, which is a subset of, the general population. So, the fact that this helps bridge people into that, it might be the right choice to have made this, but it's just not targeted for you or I. It's targeted for somebody that's more like my sister, that would be someone who's never felt comfortable going into the Lacerda games. Or making that leap into heavier games like any of the there's lots of heavy games out there, the 18XX series and all of those.
I still haven't touched those yet.
No, I know we still got levels of nerddom to it.
Well, I think for us the barrier is someone got to know how to play it first.
Exactly. We rely on Dodd. When we want to learn one of those heavier games, we rely on Dodd for that. We just gotta this was already a little bit below what we're used to playing. So, and when we saw Lacerda, we jumped on it, and it wasn't exactly what we were expecting.
Well, and I think with the 2-player, it's a little clunky. So there was moments of feeling stalled, and that is normally in Lacerda games you're like, crap, I have so much to do and so little people.
Yeah, and I think I think probably give it a 7.5 if it was 3-player, because it was just that you couldn't go to the board aspect. The fact that she comes to your board, and that's fine, and you have to pay that extra penalty. But if you're playing 3-player or 4-player, you can go to the board she's on. You just know you're going to be paying.
Right, and I understand why they did that for the 2-player to make it a little more restrictive, but I think it caused a stalling effect in the 2nd-player. So I think I agree with you. Right now it's a 7, but it will probably be a 7.5 at the 3-player because that stalling effect won't occur. But yeah, I think that's probably spot on. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We had an absolute blast tonight. Let us know some of the reviews that you want to see upcoming. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.